In this segment, we're going to talk about how to download the data to a temporary file on your computer that's paired to the device, and I'll be helping every site set up their computer so that that will be easy to have happen. And then we'll take the data that is downloaded and I'll show you how to save it to an Excel file so that you can prepare it to send to me. And the hope is that every week, the end of the week, during testing, during the Validum study, you'll take these two steps. They're fairly simple, but I want to walk you through it so that it's clear as to how to go about it. So the first thing we do is we go to the computer where we have the software loaded, and we're going to open the Quadscan software. So you just simply click on the icon. So we're going to turn on the Quadscan unit, and within the Bodystat Quadscan software, we're going to go to File and click Download. And that will cause the device to download all the tests that are on the device to a temporary file called Downloaded Data. And then I'm going to select, using the shift, I'm going to highlight all of the data that I would like to save to an Excel file. I'm going to go back to the File option and click Save as DBase. Now, what I want you to do is each week, I'm going to want you to put your site in and then the date of download. So let's say we're talking about the University of Minnesota Fairview. I would just say Fairview, and I'm going to hit an underscore, May 29th, 2013. So I've got the date of the download and the site clearly delineated in the Excel file. And then, very important, because there's no default option for Excel, I'm going to type .xls. So it's very important that you do that, because if you don't, it's not going to be able to read it as an Excel file. And the DBase files, it's just dysfunctional. I don't know what DBF is, so you just need to make sure that you type .xls, and then I'm going to hit Save. And now I'm going to close this out. I'm going to close down the Quadscan software, turn off the Quadscan device, and then I'm going to go back to my shared protected drive where I've got my data, and I see this file now, Fairview, May 29, 2013. Now I'm going to open that file, and you will see a number of columns that are empty. The date of birth, actually, because we're not actually entering the birthday into the Quadscan device, I'm not asking you all to do that. What I want you to do is just highlight, so clicking up here on that space up here so I get the whole column highlighted, and I'm going to delete columns B through T, and I'll show you why in a minute here if I can get it to go. Okay, so make sure I do not delete the test number and onward. That's all the real data begins at column U. So I've highlighted columns B through T, and now I'm just right-clicking in that space there so I can delete those. And now you can see that there's a subject ID column labeled under A and test number. And so remember that every time I have you do a test, I'm having you write down that unique test number that corresponds to the data for that particular subject. And so these test numbers are, they don't mean anything without tying them to a study subject ID number. So the specific defining number for your subject, for your site and for the study, needs to be entered in. So by test number 1, whatever your system for naming subject IDs, and I believe that Rupinder said that she'll be giving those numbers in terms of a kind of a standardized way, so every site will have those study subject IDs designated. You'll type that in, okay? So this is critical before you save and send this Excel file to me, that is trackable to a particular study subject ID. And that's it. That's fairly simple. I realize there are a couple of steps to it, but once you do it once, you'll see that it's fairly easy. There are a couple of things that need to happen before you send that. So the hope is that you'll send those files to me maybe on a weekly basis so that we can kind of get the data every week and deal with it from there. Okay, so where the data are downloaded to will be decided upon when I help you get your computer set up. And so the directory where we have the Excel file that we just saved, you will see this downloaded data.bs2 with the date of download. And to avoid having the data continue to get duplicated every time you download the device or unload data from the device, I'm going to want you to go, after you've made your Excel file, is delete this temporary file, this BS2 file. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete that. And then the next time I download data, it will create a new temporary file. And again, all of the tests that you have previously downloaded, in addition to any new ones since the last time you downloaded, will be shown in that temporary file. And so what I'm going to want you to do for subsequent weekly, after you've done the first time through, is you're going to need to see where the test numbers begin for the new set of data, for this new week's data. So suppose we're at the second week or the third week after we've originally downloaded the data. And suppose maybe the first week we only had test numbers 1 through 5. And this week we now show 1 through 5, but now all the new data, test numbers 6 through 13. So now I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to select test numbers 6 through 13 because I'm going to say that was the previous week's data that have not yet been saved. And now I'm going to do the same procedure that I did before, File, Save as DBase, and let's say we're now, let's see, we'll say Fairview, and instead of May 29th, we're now on June, whatever, June 6th, a week later. And again, I'm going to do .xls, and you could do .xlsx if you'd like for the more up-to-date version of Excel. So then I'm going to hit Save, and it's going to save it in that directory where I told it to save. And now what we see are my two Excel files, the one that I sent the previous week, and now this one here that is simply showing numbers 6 through 13 test numbers. I'm going to go and do the same thing where I delete columns B through T and then input the subject ID numbers corresponding to each of the tests. So it's a similar, exact same procedure, but now with a new set of data. The final step, again, each time I do this, is I'm going to go ahead and delete that downloaded data.bs2 file because that's a temporary file. And if I don't delete it, it'll end up giving me duplicates. So I'll have test numbers 1, I'll have multiple versions of those for each of the test numbers. It will download it again, and I'll have 2 of the test number 1, and I don't want that. So I'm going to delete this temporary file before I close out. And now I'm ready to email this file to me, if you'll send it to me by email.